Hey guys, welcome back to another video from the channel Learn from Basics. This is Joe here, and welcome to our 9th video on the series on this channel where we learn about Flutter, one of the fastest growing programming languages. So in our last video, we got started on Dart. Dart is basically the programming language that you use to create Flutter apps, as Flutter basically just allows Dart to create apps, and we talked about that in our previous videos. So if you haven't checked those out, go ahead and check those out. Link to the playlist will pop up right now and be in the description. So, in our last video, we talked about how Flutter works, or how Dart works. We learned that if you want to run a program, you would have to put that program into a function called void main in Dart, so you can tell the computer, hey computer, whenever I run my program, I want you to run the code inside here. And then we also learned that we can say print to print something. So this would be a string. We learned about the data types. So we know that we can print something like hello by simply saying that, hello. And then we also learned how to use variables. We said that to use a variable, you'd have to specify its data type. So int, the name of the variable, in this case, let's say number 1. And then finally, assign the variable the data that fits with the data type that we have allotted to the variable. Now, if you don't recall this, go ahead and watch our previous video where we discuss all of this. But basically, I can say 10 as that's the variable. And then again, if we want to print this variable, we can simply say print number 1, and then you can print the variable. And as you can see, we can print number 1 and 10. 11, there we go. Sure. Now, if we change that, as you can see, over here it changes to 11. Now, the next thing I want to learn today is functions. What are functions and why do we use functions? Well, here's a simple definition of functions. Because functions are very important when it comes to programming, and functions basically help you to organize your code and just make your code more efficient. So what are functions? Well, functions, let's type that right. Functions are a concept in programming that allows the programmer to basically, group some code, group like a bunch of code, that does a specific task. So this bunch of code, it can't just be like your whole program. The code that's inside a function has to complete a specific task, such as the code inside a function can either, add 2 numbers, it could subtract 2 numbers. Or if you're making an app, it could do something like create a new user. It could go and get data from the database. It could change the color of a button. And it could check if a button has been pressed. So functions, they basically contain code that do a certain specific task. Or in other words, they contain an algorithm. And if you know what an algorithm means, then you'll understand this. An algorithm is basically a bunch of several lines of code that accomplish a single specific task. So yeah, functions are a concept in programming that allows the programmer to group a bunch of code that does a specific task. And in case you have to use this code to complete that specific task in multiple areas in your code. So if you had to add 2 numbers in multiple separate, distinct areas in your huge 1,000-line code, complete in multiple sections of your code, then instead of rewriting the same code that allows you to add 2 numbers, instead of rewriting that over and over and over again and making your code look really messy and lengthy, you can create a function out of that piece of code, and you can give that piece of code a name. So you can group the piece of code. You can group the piece of code and give that piece of code that does the specific task a name. And now whenever you want to use that piece of code to complete the specific task anywhere in your program, instead of writing the whole code over and over again, you can simply reference to the code by using its name. So Yeah, you can simply reference the code. You can simply reference the code by using its specific name. So you can call the code by calling it by its name. So if you don't quite understand this, that's fine because you'll get to understand this more as we look into the code. So let's go into the code. So again, if you want to create a function, creating a function is really simple. First of all, you'll have to you will have to create first of all, again, like anything in Dart or almost anything in Dart, you'll have to give the data type that the function returns. Now you might be wondering, well, what data type does a function return? Well, we'll be learning about that later in our next video, but for this video, just for simplicity's sakes, let's just take into account that our function doesn't return anything. Instead, it just adds two numbers and prints. So that's basically the dummy program we're going to write. So since our program doesn't return anything, and we'll talk about what return means, since it doesn't return anything, we simply say void. So for now, let's just say the data type is void. So over here, let's type void. And remember, you write your function outside the void main function. Because, again, the void main function is a function in itself, and you can't write functions inside functions because, well, that's not how functions work, I guess. And then you give the function name of function, and then you add two circle brackets, and we'll learn about why we need those, two curly brackets. And inside the curly bracket, you write the code that achieves the specific task. So keep in mind that the name of the function should kind of be related to what your code does, just to follow good programming habits. So I can say void, and then in this case, since our code is going to add two numbers, we can say void add two numbers, and then again, follow the syntax. And then in here, we write our code. So we can say int number 1 equal to 2, int number 2 equal to 2, int number 3 equal to, and then if you want to add two variables and store that value in another variable, you can say number 3 equal to number 1 plus number 2. So nothing too fancy. Number 2. And then finally we have to print number 3. So we can say print number 3. So now, again, semicolon. And now if we run this program, let's take all of this code outside so we don't get confused or anything. Now if we run this program, you'll see nothing happens. There's nothing being printed on the program, but you might be saying, well, over here I said add two numbers, right? Why isn't it printing number 3? Because that's what we said in our program. Well, that's a good question. And the reason nothing is happening is because over here, you're just defining a function. You're just telling the computer what to do if the function is called, if the name of the function is in your void main code. But as you can see, the name of this function isn't in our void main code. So if you want to execute a function, you have to type in the name of the function. So add to number, open bracket, close bracket, and then semicolon. And voila, 4, as you can see. So this is how basically our code works. As you can see, number 4, and over here I can change this to 3, 4, and as you can see, it turns to 7. Or I can change it to 5 and 55 and -2. And remember, minus numbers also work. And you'll see it'll say 53. As you can see, 53. So that's basically the basic function. I can reuse this function as many times as I want, and I can still make my code look short and neat. So as you can see, this makes our code look much better and much neater. So whenever you, inevitably in your app, whenever you come to debug your app, you can, just instead of rewriting the code over and over again and kind of going through the lengthy code, your code is more neat and it's easier to debug. So that's all for this video. In this video, we learned the simple functions that are used in Dart. In our next video, we're going to dive deeper into functions in Dart, such as giving inputs, returning values, and etc. But that's all for this video. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys really liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, put them down in the comment section. All useful links will be down in the description. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. On the screen are some more videos on Flutter and videos that YouTube thinks you'll like. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.